something. I hope I learn something. I hope I learn something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. I hope you learn something. I hope you learn something. I hope you learn something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days. We learn something. I hope we learn something from the stormy seas, from the brightest days, from the darkest nights, from the sunny days.
Howdy, howdy, howdy. Welcome to the daily All Hat No Cattle News Rodeo. Got ahead of myself there. I'm your host, Hat. Very glad to see you. Welcome all the chats, Trovo, DLive, and YouTube. Of course, YouTube, you're only getting half of the show. We cut off after an hour, and then I move on to the full after show on DLive and Trovo. So please thinking about getting over there. DLive especially. The link to DLive is in the YouTube chat pinned at the top. And there's also information about going to your favorite app store and downloading the DLive app for your phone, be it iPhone or Android. Let's get into it, everyone. I have a lot of stuff. It's kind of a grab bag today for the beginning of the show. A lot of international stuff, both in U.S. foreign policy and in actual international news itself, including an interesting twist regarding the ship that blocked the Suez Canal, the Ever Given. New news about that. It ain't over yet, folks. And then in the after show, I've got more news about the... I've heard Duante and Dante Wright riots. I'm going to go with Dante. It's easier to say. So the Dante Wright riots and some border stuff, some gun stuff, and border stuff tied to gun stuff. And then also at the end, something different, something I don't think I've ever done on this show before, which is I'm going to dive back into my old bugbear from my original YouTube days, which is the body positivity, fat pride, curvy is cool movement. Something specific has come up regarding Playboy Germany and the daughter of a world-famous television personality. And we'll get into that at the end. But of course, I will also talk about the discussion Michael North and I had yesterday regarding shoplifting rates between races. I've come up with some kind of facts, and it's as good as I could get. So we'll talk about that. But first, our first Babylon Bee bookend. This is the one on the left. From their U.S. section, Amazon creates online looting app to allow the timid to loot from home. And here we have a shot of an actual Amazon.com page, shopping cart with a big screen TV, 1080p flat screen, listed for over $1,300, and a pair of Nike Air Jordan 1 Retro High OG Bread Toes, listing for over $1,200. I have an update on that price, by the way. And on the checkout side, you see subtotal 2 items, $2,553 and change. Proceed to checkout, or you can click on Loot It, and it has the logo there for Amazon Loot. Dateline US, Amazon is taking a giant leap towards greater equity, there's that word, with the addition of a brand new Loot function. Customers will have the option of proceeding to the checkout to pay you normally, or clicking the Loot It button for social justice. Quote, if a looter is too timid to smash a window in person, or just too lazy to go outside, we should not be suppressing their important voice by preventing them from looting, said outgoing CEO Jeff Bezos. Quoting again, we are proud to announce our new app, Amazon Loot. Close quote. Customers who select the looted option will be given a list of injustices and microaggressions they can select from that would justify their looting. Items will be promptly shipped in one day, just like Amazon Prime items. Quoting Bezos again, Amazon really feels for all the people in this country who are shy or live far away from the prime looting locations of urban centers. We are proud to be expanding looting access to more people than ever. Say it with me, looting is a human right. Period. Close quote. Amazon clarified that they will not be paying the manufacturers for looted merchandise, but since all makers have insurance, this will not be a problem. Babylon Bee, everyone. So, allow me to I'm going to dive into the Babylon Bee, I think, for the first time. As I just quoted to you, the price on this page from a shopping cart has those Nike Air Jordans listed at $1,237 and change. Well, I had a wild hair, and I decided to take a look at what that listing is right now. And it ain't $1,237.20. It is, in fact, I have it right here, if I could get off the page, $1,431.80 for a pair of sneakers with leather soles. Screw you, Nike. That's all I have to say about that. All right, moving right along, my personal conceit, the market. Every major index was up today. I can't remember the last time I saw that happen. The Dow was up almost a full percent. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ were up over 1%. In fact, the Dow broke 34,000 today, record territory. It was, in fact, higher for a little while, and then there was a bit of a retreat and a recovery near the end. The Dow actually closed at 34,035.99 per share. Now, the S&P 500 is well over the 4,000 mark at 4,170 and change, and the NASDAQ also into record territory at breaking through the 14,000 mark at 14,038 and change. Folks, I'm not a financial analyst. I'm wrong all the time, but these are the good times. Don't expect this to last. Corporate tax increases may be coming, and you're going to see a huge retreat. I'm just saying. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I know people with money in the stock market. I don't want them to lose it. But I'm predicting, or at least for myself, a pullback. It's just a matter of when. That's my thought on it. But again, everything was up today. Gold was up over 1.6%, now well over the $1,760 per ounce mark. Crude oil broke through $60 a barrel. closing at $63.36 per barrel of West Texas Intermediate sweet crude. And Bitcoin was the major winner of the day, up a full 1.77% over the previous mark, closing at I shouldn't say closing, it's still trading. Bitcoin never stops trading. But Bitcoin is currently at 63,509 and change. So well over the 63,000 mark. Bitcoin is really moving along. And just for an example, in case you're wondering, this is the year graph for Bitcoin. As you can see, at this time last year, Bitcoin was at 44,500 and change. And then today it closed at 63,500 and change. That's a difference. That is a difference. All right, moving right along. I saw this story and I almost lost my lunch. I couldn't believe this. This really doesn't fit in any kind of block I normally do, except I guess you could put it in the censorship block. So I'm going to go with that tag. I'm going to interrupt myself real quickly. David Von Kettering says in the DLive chat that Bitcoin crash is going to be epic. We'll see. Bitcoin often has boom and bust. That's the nature of the game. But it's not the crash that you have to look out for. It's what happens after the crash. That is the thing. But we'll see how that happens. But I take your point very well, David. So anyway, the story. This is from the Post Millennial, an outlet that we are subscribed to. We pay money to the Post Millennial every year. And according to this article from yesterday, a woman in Washington State sent a FOIA request to the state, specifically the state's corrections office, and wanted information on the number of transgender prisoners who have been transferred from the prison associated with their biological sex to a prison associated with their expressed gender identity. I hope I'm putting that PC enough for YouTube to not yank the channel. We'll have to see. And she did it for both trans women prisoners and trans men prisoners. There was not a specific import for one sex over the other. What this woman was trying to do is get an idea of how many people are being put in prisons other than what their biological sex is. Because as I have told you before, there are instances, especially in England, where they started doing this years ago, of quote-unquote trans women sexually assaulting, sometimes raping, and in one instance impregnating a female prisoner they were housed with because they'd been moved to a female prison. In a lot of countries, female max security is more akin to male medium security, so the populations are able to mix much more freely. They're not locked in their cells for long periods of time like you are in max security. And this is happening. California passed a law last year allowing transfers. Some 200 plus inmates have asked for transfers to their, quote, expressed gender identity appropriate prison. About a dozen have been allowed so far. No real numbers otherwise. But that's all this woman wanted, was statistics on what the state of Washington was doing in regards to this phenomenon. And 10 days later, she got a notice that her FOIA request had been enjoined and was under an injunction because of a filing by the ACLU. And for those of you who are not from America or have forgotten, the ACLU stands for, oh my God, my brain, it just shut down. My brain just literally shut down. American Civil Liberties Union. American Civil Liberties. The ACLU is blocking a woman's legal effort to get information from her government about a specific thing. A FOIA request, by the way, that she was able to do after resourcing how to do it through, guess, wait for it, the ACLU website. On the ACLU website, they walk you through how to fill out FOIA requests. She used that resource, and then 10 days after she made that filing, the ACLU basically sued her to block her from getting that information. So there are two outstanding questions here. The first is, how the hell did the ACLU even know about this? Who contacted the ACLU about this request? That may have broken a law. Maybe, maybe not, but that may have broken a law. But the more basic question is, what in the flying F does the ACLU have to do with a private citizen's request for government records? This is by far and away the greatest overreach of a quote-unquote nonprofit I can think of, except for the National Action Network, or whatever Al Sharpton calls his group, causing race riots and the killing of innocent people over things that he said happened that didn't. Breonna Taylor, anyone? Look that up. Breonna Taylor. Man killed himself because of that lie. But the ACLU has just gone beyond the pale here. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when the ACLU actually stood for civil rights. I remember very well the case about the American Nazi Party wanting to march through Skokie, Illinois, one of the highest Jewish American communities in the country, percentage-wise. In fact, there's an old joke, how do you know you're in Skokie? Because there's a rose in bloom on every corner. Dun-dun. And the ACLU stood up for the Nazis' rights for freedom of assembly and freedom of speech. And they won. And the damn Nazis marched through Skokie. It was a horrible thing. In fact, if you watch the movie The Blues Brothers, that gathering that you see in, I believe, Grant Park, with the Illinois Nazis, as they're referred to by Jake Elwood, or Jake Blues, that was a direct reference to that court case, to that march. I'm just beside myself over this. The ACLU has made millions since they've decided to go far, far, far left. You remember, they lost money when they stood up for Trump at the very beginning of his administration over certain things he was doing. And they saw their coffers just dwindle. And so they went hard left and started raking in the woke cash. Laura Weekly says in the D-Live chat that the ACLU knew because she used their website. Well, if they were tracking her. But still, I don't think she would have used that site and used it to specifically fill out the forms for Washington State, unless they have that capability. That I don't know. I did not research that. So that is a good point, though, Laura. Thank you. I'd like to read just another guy's comment. ACLU is garbage. They're just a bunch of anti-American pedos. I'm not going to argue with that. YouTube's probably going to yank me for that comment, but what the hell? I'm not making any money there. Sorry, Michael Scriven. I know you listen almost every day, but you need to come to D-Live, dude. All right, moving right along. Big news since yesterday was the announcement that the DEMS, led by the ever-idiotic Jerry Nadler, doofus, New York, from the head, I can't believe this, the head of the House Judiciary Committee, a completely feckless human being, they announced that they were going to introduce legislation today to basically pack the Supreme Court. The Congress Democrats want to legislate the expansion of the Supreme Court from the current 9 justices to 13. A number that they've arrived at, interestingly enough, because adding another 4 justices would then give the Democrats a solid majority on the court. If they only wanted to add another 3, then the court would technically be 6-6. Although we all know that Chief Justice John Roberts is a complete leftist moron. He hasn't voted in favor of a conservative ruling. Pardon me, not conservative, constitutional. Let's not get the two confused. He hasn't ruled according to the Constitution in years. Absolute years. But one thing that we've heard is from Nancy Pelosi, Street Fighter Pelosi, as she's referred to herself, I think you might have seen the story the other day where she said if the Capitol rioters had breached the area where she was at, she would have basically gone mano a mano with them because she's a tough gal. We all know how the mean streets of San Francisco are when you live in a gated community and are a multi-millionaire. But that's old Nancy for you, ready to throw him down. Now, Nancy said that she is not going to bring this bill to the floor for a vote. Okay, all right, good. But you got to keep reading. Remember, folks, I tell you, these stories aren't all headlines in the first paragraph. You got to keep reading. Further down, Nancy says that she is not adverse to the idea of passing this legislation. Right now, she's just hedging her bets and waiting for the quote-unquote commission that 46 Asterisk has put in place to study whether or not the court should be packed and also expand the federal courts, thereby obviating the gains that President Trump made by nominating some 300 federal judges and getting them through the Senate, thanks to Mitch McConnell, who did his job. That was not a superhuman effort on Mitch McConnell's part. He kept the caucus together, and they passed the judges. That's what they're supposed to do. So Mitch McConnell doesn't necessarily deserve a cookie for just doing what he was basically elected to do. But he at least got it done. I will give him that. But the Democrats are accusing the Republicans of packing the courts because we did what is within our constitutional and legal rights. They're still butthurt over the whole Merrick Garland thing. You can call Mitch McConnell a hypocrite if you want to. That's fine. It won't bother me, and I'm sure it doesn't bother Mitch McConnell. Politicians are all hypocrites in one way or another. We know that. The thing is, are they hypocrites at least towards the legal side of things? Mitch McConnell did not break any Senate rules. Mitch McConnell did not break U.S. law. Mitch McConnell did not violate the Constitution. Now, the court set at 9 justices, SCOTUS. That is not in the Constitution. That was set by Congress. The current 9-justice bench was set in, I believe, 1869. It's been as few as 4 judges, which happened during the Jefferson administration, Thomas Jefferson, when he wanted to add a justice to the Supreme Court, and he was blocked by the opposition. Jefferson had a very rocky presidency. There was a lot of infighting. You remember Alexander Hamilton went behind his back and was doing deals with the French. Or was it the English? I've suddenly forgotten. Alexander Hamilton was violating U.S. foreign policy at the time. Let's put it that way. Because he hated Thomas Jefferson. So Pelosi's still open to the idea. Now, of course, the Republicans, as you would expect, are absolutely livid over this. Absolutely jumping up and down, pulling a nose hair, making themselves cry livid. I don't care. That's what they're supposed to do. What I want to know is what they'll do when the rubber hits the road and it comes to the Senate. Because ultimately, I predict, and again, I'm always wrong, but ultimately I predict this bill will hit the House floor because Biden's commission will find that court packing is legitimate and needs to be done because the economy in the country has grown, which is complete BS. Having more judges won't make things easier. It'll just make things better for the Democrats. They've already packed the Second Circuit. It was a conservative majority on the Second Circuit, the D.C. Circuit, until Obama added judges to it, then made it solid liberal. But we know for a fact that Biden has been dodging the court packing question for a year now. He was asked last year a number of times about packing the court, and he deliberately refused to answer every time. In one instance, saying, I'm not going to answer that question because if I do, that'll become your top story. All you newspapers, that'll be your top story instead of what's going on right now. Well, what was going on right now at the time was a presidential election. He actually told another reporter that the American public didn't deserve to know what he thought about court packing. That's a direct quote. He told Georgie step on my Nopolis, that wasn't very good, that he was open to packing the court, but that he wanted to form a commission, which he did. A commission made up of complete nut jobs. But Mike Lee, of course, but probably the best constitutional scholar in the House, or pardon me, in the Senate, aside, even compared to Ted Cruz. And I read Ted Cruz's book, One Vote Away, and it's excellent. You really need to read that if you're interested in the history of the court at all. And Mark Levin also wrote an excellent book. I've forgotten the Men in Black, I believe. Men in Black Robes, something like that, was a book about the court. An excellent book, too. But Mike Lee said about this announcement from the Democrats, packing the court is an act of arrogant lawlessness. Those behind this effort spit in the face of judicial independence. And that's exactly what it is. If the Democrats pack the court, they will appoint 4 liberal judges. And we all know that liberal appointees vote 100% on the left. No matter what the Constitution reads in regards to whatever laws or action is in front of the SCOTUS, the left always votes in favor of liberal policies. We remember famously Heller versus D.C., the gun case. The liberal justices on the court voted, Kagan and I think it was Kagan and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, easy for me to say, they voted that Americans do not have a constitutional right to own a firearm. It's absolutely tearing up the Second Amendment. So liberals always vote left, always. Republican appointees may be 50-50, maybe. Republicans have the worst track record with Supreme Court justices by far. So even if the court is packed and then the Republicans take over and we add more justices to try and get it back, there's no guarantee we'll get it back because we'll probably pick 2 winners and 2 losers and it'll be right back where it was before. But this would create a completely political court. And that is the exact opposite of what the courts in America are supposed to be. They are supposed to be constitutionally driven, not politically driven. And as we often see, the Obama-Clinton appointees will vote left, and the Bush-Trump appointees, more often Trump than Bush, but they'll tend to vote along constitutional lines. Now again, this bill, when it comes to the floor, will have to pass the Senate with a 60-vote margin. The court is not infrastructure, is not the budget, no matter how much the Democrats would like to pretend, so they can't pass it through reconciliation. It would require a 60-vote majority. So I don't see it happening this time. We're not going to have the Senate in such a state all the time. Sooner or later, the Democrats are going to get a majority in the Senate where they can count on 60 votes to pass their crap. And you know they are chomping at the bit to do this. We have one hope, and that is pass a constitutional amendment declaring that 9 justices are the set limit for the SCOTUS. But there's no way we're going to be able to get that out of the House. Certainly not through the Senate. I think the states would ratify it. I think it would be ratified immediately. But we're going to need a majority Republican House and Senate to get that done. So we've got to hold on. We've got to hold on. Just another guy says in the D-Live chat, Trump's SCOTUS picks have been mostly a disaster. Change my mind. I would not even begin to try to change your mind, good sir. Not even begin to try to change your mind. They have been a disaster. Amy Coney Barrett, who this channel stood up for, front and center, has ducked her responsibilities more often than not. She has been a complete wimp. Gorsuch made a horrible decision on the Sex Discrimination Act. What was that, 2 years ago? When he ruled that gender identity is now considered lawfully protected under the Sex Discrimination Act. That was a completely insane move. And of course, most everybody knew that Kavanaugh was going to be a squish. Mark Levin famously predicted that Kavanaugh was going to be an absolute squish, and he was right. But it drives me crazy whenever I see a news story that says the court has a 6-3 conservative majority. That is a laugh. That is an absolute laugh. At best, it is 5-4 conservative. At best. And again, I say conservative when I mean constitutional. Laura Weekly says in the chat that she was against Amy from day one. Noted. Noted, Laura. Noted. Thank you. Totally noted. Moving right along. Let me touch on this briefly. Prices are going through the roof. I'm seeing story after story every day. Lumber prices have almost doubled. There is a lumber shortage because of all of the home construction going on right now. People are moving and buying new homes. Remember, when you sell a home in California, you're probably going to be able to buy a place for a quarter of the price that you sold your California home for, and it'll be twice as big. So custom homes are going up all over the place, Texas, Arizona, Florida, although it's really hard to find land in Florida right now. And so lumber prices are through the roof. Gas is up significantly, at least 30% in some places. I guess it's over $3 a gallon in D.C. now. It was $2.35 this time last year. Food prices have gone up a good 25% in some instances, in some commodities higher because of the disruption of the supply chain due to the Chinese Communist Party virus. But 46 asterisk wants to add to those cost increases by raising taxes for everyone. Don't buy this crap about if your household makes more than $400,000 a year, you'll be the only one paying extra taxes. They want to raise the corporate tax rate from 21%, which was fair by international standards under Trump. They want to raise it to 28%, which puts us behind China for corporate taxes, which is a direct incentive for people to take their money out of the U.S. and put it in China. The administration is also trying to get the world to agree to a minimum international business tax. Our people keep saying that the world is on a race to the bottom to charge the lowest possible income tax, corporate income tax, in order to attract business. Okay, so two things on that. First of all, that's not true. Corporate tax rates haven't moved very much over quite a while. And second of all, who the hell are you to tell other nations how much they should tax corporations? Ireland has enjoyed a boom in business since they drastically lowered their corporate tax rate. I know Abbott, who Picasso knows used to work for. They put factories, whole factories, in Ireland after Ireland reduced its corporate tax rate. International travel to Ireland has absolutely expanded exponentially where it was just 20, 30 years ago due to the increase in business. And our government is trying to tell Ireland, you have to tax more. Quoting just another guy in the D-Live chat, he lives in rural Indiana. I have relatives who used to live in Lowell, by the way. And he says you can't buy 2x4s any longer than 10 feet, and they're ridiculously expensive. He has a porch to redo, and he can't do it. May have to go with concrete. You may have to go with concrete or paving blocks. It's hard to say. But best of luck. Best of luck. So anyway, so the White House wants to raise taxes. And Jen Psaki was confronted on this in regards to how utility bills would go up. And we already know that under Trump, with the tax cuts, utility companies, in over 100 instances, reduced their rates. They said, we're saving money thanks to the tax breaks, and we're passing some of that savings on to you. That is a thing. That happened. But we're always told by the Democrats that the Trump tax cuts only helped the rich, and that all the corporations did was buy stocks, buy their stocks. Completely ignoring the fact that how many big name companies, when the tax cuts were announced, instantly sent out $1,000 checks to every employee. There were something like 5 or 10 companies that did that the day the tax cuts were announced, even before they had been passed. And prices went down, and wages went up, especially for low income. The bottom 25% in the income brackets saw a higher rate of increase in wages, both real dollars and percentages, than did the top 1%. That is a fact. But the Democrats lie about that every single time. So Jen Psaki, who, as we all know, is an arrogant, condescending, dismissive, mendacious, passive-aggressive, patronizing, self-righteous, smug liar, that Jen Psaki, when asked about utility bills going up, said, well, that's not going to happen. They're not going to do that. So get this. Part of the question. I mean, utility companies did. Maybe it's arguably partially for show, but listen to how these reporters dissemble. It's pathetic. Partially for show, but they did announce, rate decreases after the 2017 tax law passed and attributed it to the tax law passing. Psaki cuts her off. Or I should say, cuts the reporter off. I don't know the gender of the reporter. Psaki cuts the reporter off and says, typical Psaki, is there some data that you're expecting from economists suggesting that will be the case? Or are you just getting ahead of what might happen when the bill passes? And then, last part of this, question again. I'm not aware of any specific announcements like that, but I'm just saying that was one of the results that occurred after the 2017 law passed. Then Psaki answers, well, then I don't think we have to anticipate it as an issue quite yet. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous. Corporations are not in business to lose money. If their taxes go up, they're going to find a way to ameliorate that loss in profit. And one of the quickest ways to do that is to either freeze worker wages and or raise prices. That is the nature of capitalism. Love it or leave it. Man, that woman drives me crazy. I will never play her voice on this channel again, you guys, just so you know. Any interaction she has with a reporter will be read on this channel. One of the biggest mistakes I made at the beginning of this administration was covering Psaki press conferences. A number of you were quite vocal in the chat about how much you hated it, and I argued at the time that it was important, that we needed to see what this administration was up to, and we needed to hold them accountable. That was my reasoning at the time. It took me a few days, but I realized how right you guys were. That Jen Psaki is a horrible person who treats reporters like dirt and lies continuously. It is not worth your time to hear that voice. A very irritating voice at that. Let it not be said that I don't listen to you guys. Let it not be said. And thank you, Laura, for backing me up. Lizard Bites with the twin guns gecko. Very nice. Thank you, sir. I love that sticker. Very nice. Okay. Quinnipiac poll. I've got the raw data on the next page, but let me just hit a highlight right here. This is an article by Christy Clark from the Daily Wire. And remember, Quinnipiac, I believe I'm pronouncing it right. I certainly can't spell it. 2 N's, by the way. They normally lean left. But they've got this new poll out, and one of the answers regarding the situation at the Mexican border gave 46 asterisk a 29% approval rate for how he's handling the southern border. 29% approval. 55%, a pure majority, disapproved. Now, according to Quinnipiac, he has a 48% overall rating, but that is not what the numbers really show. Let me bring it to your attention. Let me hit on some of the highlights here first. On the economy, only half of Americans approve of how he's handling it. 42% disapprove. On taxes, 45% approve, 42% disapprove. Gun policy, 39% approve, while 49% disapprove, and 11% saying no opinion. And then on the Mexican border, 29 to 55, 15% not offering an opinion. Let's get into some of the details. The thing you need to see here is, obviously the Republican and Democrat responses are going to be skewed massively. Massively. Just for instance, do you approve or disapprove of the way Joe Biden is handling his job as president? Total approval, as I said, was 48%. But look at this breakdown. Republicans, 6% approve, 87% disapprove. Thank you for the lemons, Doug. Democrats, 94% approve, 4% disapprove. Those 4% are probably the ultra-liberals who are mad because Biden still hasn't given out $50,000 to every student with student loan debt. Here's the numbers that you need to look at, though, and that is the independents. That is where your bread is made. When it comes to an election, you need the vote from the midlines to put you over the top. You can't count on party line vote alone to get you over the top, except in some Democrat districts. Approve of 46 asterisk as president. Independents, 40% approve, 45% disapprove, and 14% don't know or didn't answer. By the way, the numbers pro-Biden skew heavily towards the older population. 65 and older tend to give him better marks than the other age groups, interestingly enough. Let me give you a couple more. Would you say that Joe Biden is honest or not? Okay, and again, Republicans actually are almost split, 51 to 42, yes to no. I'm sorry, that's total, 51-42. Republicans, forgive me, 13% yes, 79% no. Democrats, 91% yes. Here it is again, though. Independents, 45% yes, 47% no. Now, that is within the margin of error. The margin of error for this poll is about 2.8%. But still, that is right down the middle of independent voters. Joe Biden is losing ground when it comes to independents. And I'll give you one more. Leadership skills. Again, Republicans and Democrats are wildly apart. Independents. Good leadership skills, agreeing, 46%, disagreeing, 48%, no answer or do not know, only 6%. So a lot of independents have strong opinions on Biden as a good leader, whether or not. Again, that's statistically within the margin of error, 46% to 48%. But that's not good. He doesn't have a majority on either of those. And if you go without counting the margin for error, he's got more no than yes. And then, again, among independents. There's more to this. I'll put the link to this in the chat so you can follow along at your leisure. Hey, comfy friend. Nice to see you. I missed your coming into Trovo. Thanks for moving over to DLive. Really appreciate it. But there are your numbers to look at your leisure. They're fascinating, but again, ignore the Republican and Democrat stuff. Look at the independents. That's where it counts, at least in my opinion. All right, get into something really shocking. Picasso Knows and I, by the way, just today subscribed to justthenews.com, John Solomon's excellent website. I use John Solomon fairly often during the week, and I realized that he deserves some love. So we have subscribed to Just the News as of today, and we're very happy to do that. In fact, some of you may know that is my surprise birthday present to Picasso Knows. Today is her birthday. She was born on tax day. How appropriate for a financial analyst, right? Who says your stars are not cast when you're born? Who says? So God bless my dear wife of over 30 years on her birthday. Just a few years short of being able to tap into that wonderful retirement money. That's all I'll say about that. But I have this article written by John Solomon himself from this morning regarding a fundraiser, a big-time Washington, D.C. type fundraiser. This guy bundled money for Clinton, Obama, and full disclosure, for the Trump Inauguration Committee. So he's an equal opportunity bundler. But he was recently convicted of election fund. What's the word I'm looking for? Election fund fraud, violating the guidelines, like Dinesh D'Souza was. But this guy was sentenced to 12 years for campaign finance violation. That's what I meant to say, campaign finance violation. 12 years. Now, he had pled guilty, was looking for a soft sentence, and instead they absolutely nailed him to the wall. This makes Dinesh D'Souza's sentence look like what George Papadopoulos got for quote-unquote lying to the FBI. I believe he served under 2 weeks. 12 years for campaign finance violation. That is insane. Here's the thing, though. This gentleman's name, which is, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Ahmad Zubairi, says that he is privy to a bunch of CIA wrongdoings because he was an asset for a while, and he saw the CIA overstep its bounds, a lot. And we know this because of a recent filing with the intelligence community's Inspector General. So what Zubairi did was he hired Robert J. Ettinger Jr., who is the retired acting general counsel of the CIA. And Ettinger, has filed some really serious allegations to the CIA Inspector General. And let me read you what these are. These are legion. It's going to take me a little bit, but this is important. You guys need to hear all these. Quoting the article, according to multiple sources familiar with the complaints, Ettinger alleged to the Inspector General that Zubairi, these are bullet points, first, instructed at times by U.S. intelligence to glean information from or try to achieve certain tasks with select members of Congress, including one prominent Republican U.S. senator. The CIA is not supposed to target, spy on, or influence members of Congress. In fact, I'll go further. The CIA is not supposed to have any intelligence capabilities, activities, etc. whatsoever on U.S. soil, period. The CIA has no authorization to do any kind of activities on U.S. soil. And thank you both, David and Wheatmouth, for the generous donations. No TC, by the way, you guys, today. I'm not going to have time. I got to go to dinner with Picasso Knows and her mom, and I need all the minutes I can to get my uploads done so I can get out of here and not delay them from having dinner past 7 o'clock tonight. So my apologies. And also remember, we will not be here Monday or tomorrow. I forgot today was Thursday. I have 2 doctor's appointments tomorrow, and I have to see the oral surgeon Monday about getting the implants for my lower jaw. So we'll be gone tomorrow and Monday, so you'll have a 4-day week, and I apologize for missing those days. And of course, that also goes for my morning Witcher 2 Assassin of Kings stream that I started yesterday. I will not be streaming either of those days as well. I don't have time. So we'll be taking those days off. Continuing with the article, The CIA was involved in a clandestine operation that used an American journalism organization to carry out countermeasures and influence operations in a foreign country. The CIA is not supposed to use journalism organizations or journalists for operational cover. Also, was asked by a senior CIA official to make a private investment in an American drone company, even as Zuberi was under criminal investigation by the Justice Department. Observed what Zuberi believed was a U.S. intelligence asset become involved in Zuberi's lobbying project in Sri Lanka, a project that resulted in criminal charges against Zuberi involving the Foreign Agent Registration Act, also known as FARA. And finally, was asked by U.S. intelligence to allow a scrub team to delete emails, documents, and other evidence of his intelligence work from his computer. Here's the part. That makes sense, right? The intelligence community doesn't want people to know what you did. Fine. So they asked him, can we wipe your stuff? And he said yes. This is the part that really ticked off Zuberi. After he gave permission for them to scrub his stuff, he was accused by justice of obstructing justice for deleting those records. His handlers came to him and said, we want to scrub this stuff. We don't want to get in trouble. All this needs to disappear. Zuberi said yes. And then the Department of Justice says, hey, you deleted that stuff. That's against the law. Come on in for questioning. Obviously, Zuberi is pissed. And this will be interesting to see. I hope I'm able to follow up on this as it goes along through the Inspector General ranks. But this is a problem. This is a big problem. We've known for how long that the intelligence community has been weaponized in a number of ways outside its bounds. We've been saying that for years. Funny how the Republicans used to be the ones on the side of intelligence gathering until we saw how they were ripping into anyone associated with Trump for the last 5 years. 6 years, pardon me. And we changed our tune. And then the Democrats started screaming how discussing any problems with the intelligence community was weakening our ability to fight foreign aggression. The shoe on the other foot, folks. Shoe on the other foot. So again, I hope I'll be able to follow this story further as developments arise. Okay, onto some international stuff. I don't have a lot of time. This is an excellent article from frontpagemag.com. I really suggest you check it out. It came out yesterday. It describes how the U.S. State Department and the new policies in the Middle East are definitely subverting our relationship with Israel and supporting Iran and the Palestinian Authority, who is, of course, a puppet of Hamas and Hezbollah and pays terrorists to attack Israelis. And the more damage you do, the more money you make. They'll pay you a pension while you're in prison, and if you're killed, your family gets their house paid for, and they get a pension. And we're sending hundreds of millions of dollars to these people. You remember Trump cut off the money in 2018, and the Biden administration has turned that money right back on. Right back on. Some, I believe, $215 million so far to the PA. We're also relaxing the sanctions on Iran that had crippled them, that had ruined their economy. We had them on the brink of collapse. They would have had to have come to the bargaining table. And instead, centrifuges, a lot of time to do that, cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And the Israelis got into their system, jacked with the control units, and destroyed probably 1,000 centrifuges by sending them signals that probably made them overspin. And then they went off balance and just wrecked themselves, just tore themselves apart. That's how it's normally done. And we're giving all that back to Iran, all that money back to Palestine. Real quickly, I teased this in the beginning. The Ever Given, the ship that blocked the Suez Canal, has been seized by Egypt. They're saying that the company, Shoei Kisen Kaisha, the Japanese company that owns the Ever Given, is refusing to pay damages that were incurred by the Suez Canal Authority when the Ever Given ran aground and jammed itself between the two sides of one of the narrow parts of the canal. The owners are saying we're not paying. It's not our fault. And so now the Egyptians have impounded the ship. The crew's on board. There's nowhere for them to go. They're sitting in a lake off of the canal, and they're not moving. They're at an impasse. Real quickly on Afghanistan, I didn't get a chance to cover this yesterday, and I'm very sorry. I ran out of time, but you well know that Biden announced that we are pulling out of Afghanistan, which I thought we were already going to do. We had signed a deal with the Taliban and the Afghan government that we were going to have the troops out by May 1st. Say what you will about the deal. A deal's a deal. And the Biden administration came in and immediately said, no, we're not honoring that. So then just the other day, 46 Asterisks said, well, okay, we are going to pull out of Afghanistan, but no sooner than September 11th. How in the hell he decided to end American troop presence in Afghanistan by the 20th anniversary of the assault on our country, I have no idea. That has got to be some of the worst optics I have ever seen. But here's the big problem with the pullout. Biden said we'll do it, whether or not we're under fire. And we already know that the Taliban is gearing up for an offensive if we're not out of there by May 1st. They haven't completely stopped their attacks on government outposts, but they have decreased. And no U.S. serviceman or woman has died in Afghanistan since February of last year. But by staying in past May 1st, we are giving the Taliban justification to open up. And they are ready to do so. And Biden says we're going to withdraw even if we're under fire. Now he's making the excuse that we don't have enough time to get all of the equipment, heavy equipment and sensitive equipment, things like that, out of country before May 1st. We would have if he hadn't screwed with the deadline. So now we're stuck. We're going to try to fly planes out of Bagram while under rocket attacks. Great. But our great Secretary of State, failed pop star Anthony Blinken, is in Afghanistan telling everyone that it's going to be just fine. It's going to be just fine. And if you can't believe Anthony Blinken, then who can you believe? Another thing that happened today, we announced sanctions on Russia. Okay, good. We haven't announced any sanctions on China. But Russia has been held accountable for the SolarWinds hack. You remember that last year. SolarWinds was the big hack through I can't remember the name of this. Oh, yeah, SolarWinds. The SolarWinds system, where they were able to insert malware into an update and took control of hardware throughout the country, including many federal departments. Of course, China is behind the Microsoft email hack that is still ongoing. Still hasn't been controlled. But we haven't announced any sanctions against China. And we're still not demanding that a U.S. CDC team get on the ground in Wuhan and find out what happened, even though Biden promised he would do that time and time again and hammered Trump for not doing so, even though Trump did a number of times. But yeah, who are we to expect a Democrat to not tell the truth? I mean, to tell the truth. We expect them not to tell the truth. But one of the things about this sanction announcement was they said, we're also holding you account for what you're doing to Alexei Navalny, that's fine, and putting bounties on U.S. soldiers in Afghanistan. Now, you remember that came out last year, and they hammered Trump over it. And it was said by the intelligence community, both civilian and military, that we had no solid intel that backed that claim up. It was basically one source, one comment, but it was leaked to the press, and the Democrats used it as a football. Here's the thing. So Biden specifically quoted that bounty in this sanctions notice. Just an hour later, U.S. intel walks back claims Russians put bounties on American troops. An hour later. Quoting this article from the Daily Beast, it was a huge election time story that prompted cries of treason, but according to a newly disclosed assessment, Donald Trump might have been right to call it a hoax. Sigh, deep sigh, deep sigh. All right, couple quick things. Remember the other day I reported that we were sending 2 warships through the Bosporus Strait past Turkey into the Black Sea to support Ukrainian troops against a possible Russian invasion through eastern Ukraine and the Crimea. No, that's not going to happen. Some people are saying that the Turks misunderstood our communication. Other people are saying that the U.S. has bowed to Russian pressure to not send the ships. Whatever you say, it's not going to happen. So we're not going to have ships there, which is a shame. I think it would have been a great move, and not going to happen. By the way, just so you know, this picture is of an Arleigh Burke class guided missile destroyer. This ship needs to be put into dock. Look at the rust stains all over the hull, all over the superstructure, on the main forward superstructure there. It looks like crap. It looks like absolute crap. This ship needs to be retrofitted. Good picture though. Now, we are calling out China. I'm not saying we're leaving them completely alone. Our Director of National Intelligence said yesterday, and I'm quoting, this is an article from the Epoch Times by Kathy He, quote, China increasingly is a near-peer competitor challenging the United States in multiple areas while pushing to revise global norms in ways that favor the authoritarian Chinese system. And that's DNI Avril Haines. And she also said the regime, quote, poses an increasingly formidable challenge to the U.S. role in global affairs. Also, Haines noted the regime's substantial cyber capabilities that, if used, at a minimum, can cause localized temporary disruptions to critical infrastructure in the U.S. Okay, folks, that right there tells you how insane it is for 46 Asterisk to have allowed Chinese and Russian companies access to our power grid. That is one of the very first things he did. Anything that Trump did that was good, Biden turned over. And one of those was blocking Russia and China from having access to our power grid. And Biden just turned it right over again. Here you go, guys. Have at it. No problem. His own DNI is saying that they have cyber capabilities that can disrupt. Infrastructure. And that means the power grid. That is a direct reference to the power grid. This administration is putting us on the rails to hell. They've already destroyed the military readiness and effectiveness by all this racial equity crap and transgender support and direct contradiction to what his own DNI is telling us. All right, last thing, and then we'll move to the after show. I realize I'm going a little long on YouTube, but I wanted to get to all these. This is a story also from the Epoch Times by Rita Lee, and I'll touch on it briefly. A woman went to a Epoch Times vending box, the newspaper vending box in LA County, just a couple days ago. And when she walked up to it, she saw a young Chinese woman with a notepad and pen. And the woman who was wanting to buy a copy of the Epoch Times, which used to be free, by the way. It used to be free, the Chinese language version. Remember, the paper was started in Hong Kong back in, I believe, 2000 as a free voice against the CCP. They were giving them away for free, but the Chinese operatives were destroying the boxes, stealing the newspapers, setting them on fire, splashing them with paint, etc., etc. So the Epoch Times had to put them into solid vending systems. And then the Chinese operatives started putting slugs in the coin slots and preventing people from buying them. Also setting those on fire. There are instances of that in New York all the time. Chinese operatives vandalize Chinese language Epoch Times boxes in New York City and in Canada, too. Because remember, there's a very big Chinese community in Canada. But so this woman says to the young gal, "What are you doing?" And it basically broke down to the Chinese consulate told this young woman to hang out at the Epoch Times box and take down people's addresses. So the Chinese could send operatives to their homes and intimidate them, obviously. What other reason would there be? The CCP is absolutely doing all it can to throttle any dissenting voices, including those overseas. We know that their Chinese student programs are filled with operatives from the Chinese military and Chinese intelligence who are under threat to either come up with information or watch their families suffer back in China while they're on their student visas. We know that for a fact. It happens all the time. And I told you the story last year of a New York Police Department sergeant who's of Chinese descent who was spying on the Tibetan community in New York City for the Chinese Communist Party, being directed by someone from the Chinese consulate in New York City. And he was found out and arrested and charged with espionage. I don't know where the trial is on that so far. I need to look that up. But this is China, folks. This is China. Just another guy says in the D-Live chat, was it Feinstein whose chauffeur of 20 years was a Chinese spy? Yes, absolutely. As Laura and David said, yes, absolutely. And of course, Sunshine RN18 perfectly brings up Fang Fang, who got helped. I shouldn't say got, but helped Eric Fartwell get elected to Congress. And now he's on the intelligence community. What could go wrong? Or committee. What could go wrong there? Okay, YouTube. I gave you some extra time today, but it is time to go. I will be back Tuesday. What day is that? Let me get the date out. Let me get my calendar up here. I will be back Tuesday, the 20th, at 4 p.m. Eastern for another hour plus, I'm sure, of the daily All Hat No Cattle news rodeo on YouTube. And as I always say, please let me put up the split screen while I'm babbling. Please consider coming to DLive. The address is dlive.tv/AHNC, short for All Hat No Cattle. And if you care to watch on your phone or your tablet, the DLive app is available on Android, and Apple products. And it's very good. I like the phone app a lot. It's very good. Good resolution, good sound, and it's very robust. So here's hoping. All right, YouTube. I'll see you Tuesday. Bye-bye.